Chillingly, 9,000 potential rape gang cases have been reopened in London. I'm not going to let this go, Mayor Sadiq Khan, because I think this is a disgusting cover-up of the rape of children in London, and I think it's more prolific here in the capital than anywhere else in the country. For years now, Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London and the Metropolitan Police insist London had no and has no grooming gangs, unlike Rotherham or Rochdale. Sadiq Khan has dodged questions 9 times in the Greater London Assembly, dismissing concerns as false or politically motivated. In prior questions, the Mayor even resorted to dodging rape gang questions by throwing about his religion and ethnicity.
So are you saying we haven't got the same sort of gangs that are in Rotherham, Bradford and lots of other places in the country?
Just for what's a misunderstanding, what does she mean by that? You
know full well what I mean by that. It's all over the television. You know exactly what I mean by that. These gangs of people that are grooming young girls for sex. Do we actually have those in London?
I'm unclear, Chair, what is meant by the question. If you could spell it out, I can answer.
I've just spelt it out. Are you not listening? It's the sort of gangs that groom young girls at a young age for sex. Exactly how much clearer do you want me to be?
Every time I see that clip, it makes me angry. I don't know about you at home, but it makes me really angry. Now, a chilling letter from the Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, dated October the 24th this year, reveals the force is reopening 9,000 suspected grooming gang and child exploitation cases from the past 15 years. 9,000 of them. That is not a typo. It is an admission of catastrophic failure sparked by relentless pressure from journalists investigating and exposing the scale of the rape of our capital. I have spoke about it on this show and many other shows so often on GB News. I can't believe it's taken this long. Was it the London is open or diversity is our strength mantras that blinded the Met and the City Hall, perhaps? Well, Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philpin has called Khan's denials shameful, accusing him of facilitating a cover-up. Whistleblower Maggie Oliver, who exposed Rochdale scandals, slammed the Met and Sadiq Khan.
Reflects exactly what I've experienced in relation to Rochdale and Rotherham and Telford, that there is a repeated denial of this kind of crime until it absolutely hits them in the face and they can no longer escape from the truth of what's going on.
Yeah, well, the Met's own data shows 716 active child sexual abuse cases and 654 child criminal exploitation reports since April 2025. Let that sink in for a second. This U-turn follows a Home Office review and a delayed national inquiry announced by the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, in June. He reported networks in Tower Hamlets, Croydon and Westminster, only to be, well, this whistleblower claims to be stonewalled and threatened with losing his home, his job, and his kids if he spoke out. A survivor called Khan's dismissals disgusting, warning they could drive victims to suicide. If there is even a single case of rape gangs confirmed in London, Sadiq Khan and the Met Police's constant denial of their existence will be at the bare minimum, in my opinion, abysmal and negligent mismanagement, and at the most, an alarming cover-up of one of the biggest scandals to face our country in almost a century. Let's get the thoughts of my panel on this breaking story. Former Labour advisor Paul Richards, former Met Police detective Peter Blexley, and political commentator Lauren McEvitt. Peter, I'll start with you because, of course, being in the force yourself, you'll have a good understanding of how things work. So there are many reports we've done on GB News about potential grooming gangs in London. There is a retired detective who's done a lot of work and he's claimed he's got a handbook full of stories about young girls he believes have been part of grooming gangs. But for time and time again, the Met have claimed there were none. And now they've opened 9,000 cases. How on earth has this happened?
And, of course, there is the wonderful Maggie Oliver, who we saw in your segment not so long ago, who has done more for victims than anybody else in this nation. The history of many of these very challenging cases is that policing up until quite recently, would have a girl go missing from care, for example. So, of course, the authorities would report that child as missing. And the police would deal with it as a missing person thing. Sometimes these children were retrieved, recovered, found, discovered in all kinds of very, very unsavoury situations, surrounded by people, adults, that they shouldn't be. Alcohol, drugs, and so it goes. But what did the police do? They went for the easy tick box option. So, return the child to care, job done. No thorough investigation as to what are all these men doing in this room, what's that empty bottle of vodka all about, what are those packet of Rizzlers to do with? None of that. And so this has been allowed to grow and grow and grow, and thank goodness now the lid is being blown firmly off it. Heads must roll.
Yeah, Paul, you know, we were talking about this, I think, last week or so, where we were saying, you know, that Khan has said there's no evidence of rape gangs in London. He didn't say there wasn't any evidence of child sexual abuse, might I add, or child sexual exploitation, but it's explicitly on grooming gangs. We've had utter denials out of City Hall. I think when you look at Sadiq Khan's behaviour in some of those clips, it seems exceptionally defensive. There's another clip that's been circulating of a time when he was being challenged by David Curtin, a former London Assembly member, where he does use his race and ethnicity to try and block answering the question. Why is there such a defensiveness about this issue from politicians? I don't care what colour, creed or whatever they are, but surely the British public deserve answers.
Well, the public do deserve answers. I think that's why we're getting a national inquiry. And yes, it's had troubles with its makeup and its timings, but we are getting one. And I would hope it would include London. I mean, the idea that London is somehow immune to this horrific kind of incidents we're talking about is nonsense. It's a major city, and there will be these gangs and there will be this abuse taking place in London, just as surely as in other cities, alas. I mean, I defer always to Peter's direct experience of policing. And the point he made about the police's role, I think, is well made from experience. And from my point of view, it seems to me that, yes, ethnicity is a factor, of course, but so is power and so is class. And often it's young, white, working-class girls just being routinely ignored by the system.
And Lauren, again, you know, I don't want there to be this illusion that I think it's somehow worse in London, but other places we at least now have acknowledged the existence of grooming gangs, where they've acknowledged they've existed. There have been some attempts at arrests, but that has not been the case in our capital city, which I think is shocking. It's our largest city, of course, millions more than anywhere else, and yet there's been this constant denial that it's happening here in London. I think that, for me, is a really big problem when you look at some of the victim accounts and they go, why are we just being ignored in the capital city?
Well, I think there's been denials from the political leadership of the city. We've seen, obviously, the policing leadership reopen cases and begin to take a much more serious look at how things have been addressed over the course of the last 15 years. I think anybody who's ever done any work on the concept of county lines or the movement of drugs or the movement of organised crime across the United Kingdom knows that a city the size of London will not only not be immune, but because of the sheer number of people here, will be a larger problem than elsewhere in the country. But a large portion of the way that Sadiq Khan was handling that questioning was what he was trying to do was to get Susan Hall to make an allegation against a particular demographic. And because actually we don't know the demographics involved in who was orchestrating anything in London at the moment.
I'll hazard a guess.
But smart of her to avoid the topic so that Sadiq Khan's immediate response isn't only, you're a racist.
Lisa?
Yeah, I'll hazard a guess at the demographic of that, and I suspect that many of it in London will be reflected, as it has been elsewhere in the UK, men of Pakistani origin. The trouble is, young white girls have been routinely called promiscuous trash and the such like, when they have been exploited, repeatedly raped, drugged, and fed alcohol and the such like. It is an absolute disgrace. And what is even worse is that to a certain extent, they are still being treated appallingly because this stumbling inquiry, which your party, resisted forever and ever and ever, and included Lucy Powell accusing Tom Montgomery of a dog whistle, that was a window into the soul of your party when it comes to this kind of very, very serious crime. And somebody really needs to get a grip on this massive stain upon our once great nation.
But we are getting now the inquiry, aren't we? And that has to work. I mean, that's the most important.
It's falling apart. This it's falling apart.
You can't treat all the victims the same. They've got differing views, and 5 of them have come forward and said they'll only take part if the minister's involved, and others have said they won't take part if the minister's involved.
Gang victims. That's part of the problem. There's misleading headlines going around. Some of them saying that the Guardian put out, I think, a misleading headline, which would suggest that they were all grooming gang victims. Well, we know.
No, sure, and that wouldn't be. I mean, the Guardian getting it wrong would not be the first time, would it? But the point is, surely, for the victims to get the justice they demand and some kind of resolution, you've got to get this inquiry up and off the ground. And it's hard. You know, it is difficult. No government's managed it yet. This one's trying.
Well, no, hang on.
Finding the right chair, finding the right ways to give people a platform and a voice, and getting the justice they demand, and then ultimately banging up the perpetrators and putting them in prison. This is hard, but the government is trying to do it.
Very briefly, Laura.
So in a previous life, I was obviously a special advisor. We had the Waterhouse inquiry resurrect itself in around 2012, 2013. We got the McCurr review up and running and funded across 3 government departments in 72 hours.
Wow, there you go.
So
where there's a will, there's a way.
Exactly.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Listen, I think if any politician of any creed or any political colours is found guilty or somehow complicit in covering up this scandal, there should be heads rolling for it. I really do. And a spokesperson for the Metropolitan Police has said this: "We are utterly committed to protecting vulnerable children and bringing those responsible to justice. Our data shows that group-based child sexual abuse and exploitation picture in London is more varied than other parts of the country and does not neatly align with patterns of methodology, ethnicity or nationality seen elsewhere and reported on extensively." A spokesperson for the Home Office has said, we have initiated a new policing operation, Operation Beaconport, overseen by the National Crime Agency, which has already flagged more than 1,200 closed cases of group-based child sexual exploitation for review. A spokesperson for the Mayor of London said, "Any individuals or gangs exploiting children for sex are utterly abhorrent. Sadiq is quite clear that they must face the full force of the law. These children have not only suffered terrible abuse at the hands of their perpetrators, but have been woefully let down by the authorities meant to protect them from harm." All right, well, there you have it, everybody.